whether it's on or off. Sorry, Dana. All right, if I can have your attention, please. Okay. Welcome to you all. Welcome to this Build Zimbabwe Alliance press conference. Thank you for making time out of your busy schedules to be with us today. It's a very important day for all of us. I know you're very busy with all your schedules and all that's happening in our country. And thank you for joining us today as we make history. I'd like to introduce you to the panel, the people that I have up front with me. On my far right is Mr. Pazorora, Ranganai Pazorora. On my far left is Mr. Christopher Chinyati, and next to him is Mr. William Pilbro. And last but not least, on my right is our president, Dr. Noah Manyika, the president of the Build Zimbabwe Alliance party. My name is Linda Muzenda. I'm sure most of you have seen me before. I'm in the executive of the Build Zimbabwe Alliance. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Noah Manyika. After his presentation, we're going to open the floor for questions. And as our usual procedure, you just raise your hand, introduce yourself, and let us know your affiliation. You can then give your question, address your question to Dr. Manyika, and he will respond, or whoever it needs to respond will do so. If you have a follow-up question, we'll only allow one follow-up question in the interest of time. So thank you again. Over to you, Dr. Manyika.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here. Well, much has transpired in our country since I spoke to you at this venue almost a year ago. Then I was the convener of our party. Today, I speak to you as the presidential candidate for the Build Zimbabwe Alliance in the 2018 elections. We owe where we are today to the extraordinary dedication and hard work of our leadership team. From the beginning, we were clear that ours would be a different campaign, that it would be disciplined and focused and would not be distracted by the noise in the politics of our country. We believe that the only way to build a country whose greatness is measured not just by the standards of Africa, but of the world, is by the full completion of the democracy project in our country. Something that was never the goal of Operation Restore Legacy, nor of the current administration of Emmerson Mnangagwa. It is important that we Zimbabweans make it clear to the world that we are not confused. Robert Mugabe's departure did not give our country the top to bottom leadership renewal we desperately need. He may be gone, but the people responsible for the misery of the Zimbabwean people in the past 37 years are still very much in control. Yesterday, they expected us to accept the defense of leadership failure as the highest calling of citizenship. Today, those who are anxious to have their turn at plundering the resources of our country want us to believe that Emmerson Mnangagwa, who, by his own admission, was Mugabe's faithful aide for over 50 years and served in a ruthless administration for 37 of those years, is the great champion of democracy and leader we Zimbabweans deserve. Only last week, President Mnangagwa, who even some young people and men of the cloth have already assured of their vote, was at his strident best chanting, "Pasine Zimbrasungata, Pasine Mandu," a chilling reminder that those who oppose his rule are considered sellouts and enemies of the state who deserve to die. We are determined to make it clear to those in power that they can no longer count on our willingness to tolerate the intolerable, and that we will only be satisfied when we have competent and selfless leaders who believe that no Zimbabwean has a higher claim to citizenship than another on account of race, age, tribe, gender, or liberational credentials. Leaders who are committed to unleashing the incredible potential and promise of our people. What we have now at the helm of our country are leaders who want us to believe, for their own benefit, that simply signing a mega deal with a foreign investor solves all our country's problems. They desperately want us to believe that foreign capital and corrupt local business people who are anxious to get on with business really care about the condition of the subsistence farmer in Gokwe or Chipinge. With these kinds of leaders, we can only be an average African country at best, forever stuck in the third world category, within which poor people are bribed with a little bit of food during election time to celebrate the building of a few highways which passed through villages stuck in the last century. I want to echo the passionate and powerful call by leaders who care about the future of our country, urging us as Zimbabweans to consider our ways and our leadership choices, and challenging us to change our mindsets. Only recently, we saw the spectacle of grown women rolling on the ground in funereal mourning at a ZANU-PF rally after President Mnangagwa announced his wife's resignation from her parliamentary seat. The likelihood is that those same women are the ones described in the book of Haggai, who, in spite of singing praises to ZANU-PF for the past 37 years, sow much but harvest little. The ones who eat, but there is never enough to be satisfied. The same women whose hard-earned wages seem to go into a press with holes. The reality is that kuguta kwa mtongi hakusi kuguta kwako. As one leader wrote recently, it does not matter how much investment resources or billions flow into Zimbabwe. Since before and after independence, it has never been about lack of resources, but those controlling those resources. It has always been about selfish leaders channeling everything to a chosen few, or a bunch of corrupt thieves pretending to be the champions of the poor while squandering our national resources, leaving the rest of the populace to sweat, labor, and then get nothing, as if they were putting their wages in pockets with holes. While billions that have disappeared from our national economy in recent years still haven't been accounted for, there are those who expect Zimbabweans to be excited about the billions that will supposedly flow into the country through the Zimbabwe is ready for business mantra and initiative. The question every Zimbabwean should be asking themselves, however, is what kind of pocket are those billions going into? What kind of stewardship is in charge of it? And how different is it from the past? What difference will this make to the average and ordinary Zimbabwean? Will the billions that will flow into our economy under this leadership be more than what will flow out? That is the question to ask. Now, if the Defense Forces intervened in November last year to get rid of the criminals around the presidency, does that mean then that we will soon be having another coup to get rid of the ones that remain? As a message which was circulating on social media recently reminds us, when 15 billion from diamonds went missing, who were mining at Chiadzwa, they included an army company which was mining at Chiadzwa. Who was the Minister of Defense then? Honorable E.D. Mnangagwa. Who was the commander of the army? Vice President Chiwenga. Who was the Minister of Mines then? Minister Obed Mpofu. Who was the Minister of Home Affairs? Vice President Kembo Mohadi. No longer must we allow ZANU-PF to decide for us who our friends or enemies are, or which citizen has a right to participate in deciding the future of our country and rebuilding it. For 2 days in November last year, Zimbabweans of all races and tribes came together to demand the resignation of President Mugabe, and after his resignation, to celebrate. They painted a picture of the Zimbabwe our leaders have denied us for decades. A Zimbabwe where all citizens are equal and have much to give to each other and their nation. It was a picture the late Liberation War hero General Josiah Tongogara once painted. The picture of a non-racial Zimbabwe where leaders would extend the full rights, protections, and privileges of citizenship to all. And whites and blacks could proudly join together to build a great nation. Building a country and an economy that will meet the needs of every Zimbabwean can only happen if the full participation of every citizen in deciding the future of the nation and rebuilding it is harnessed. We are a nation of exceptional entrepreneurial talent with significant human capital of all colors and from every tribe, inside and outside of our borders. We are an uncommon people with a legendary will to survive. Ours must, however, not just be the story of survival, but of the historic coming together of Zimbabweans from every tribe and race to proudly participate in deciding the future of a country and building a great nation and world-class economy in one generation. I'm therefore proud to announce today that I have selected a proud citizen and great patriot, Mr. William Pilbro, to be one of my running mates in the 2018 election. Born in Chinoy in 1972 to a teacher and a civil servant, William, or Widzo as you like calling him, received his primary and secondary education in Chinoy and Harare before studying for a Bachelor of Accounting Science degree with the University of South Africa, a Master of Business Administration degree with the University of Reading in the UK, and is currently studying for a Master's in International Diplomacy with the University of London. He is an experienced, hands-on financial executive with over 21 years of service in the United Kingdom, South Africa, and China, with a large international corporation with revenues of 34 billion, operating in roughly 100 countries and employing some 135,000 people globally. But as you will find out, William's greatest love, after his love for his God and his lovely wife Barbara and their two beautiful daughters, is his love for his country, Zimbabwe. William is joining a team of incredible professionals and patriots. They include a young lady who is sitting on my left here, who gave up a career with the World Health Organization to come back home to fix our country. They include a man who chose not to pursue a career with international finance powerhouse JP Morgan Stanley to serve his country and his people. They include another young man who has dedicated his entire life to changing the lives of young Zimbabweans and who has visited almost every part of this country to serve, while at the same time acquiring 4 university degrees. They include another young man who speaks perfect Mandarin, whose dedication to unlocking the potential of the next generation has taken him to places like South Africa, China, and our own country to serve. I could mention many more, but these are some of the members of our executive who have done an incredible job to get us where we are today. Let me add that this is just the beginning of many appointments we will share with you that will demonstrate our commitment to bringing competent, inspired, and selfless Zimbabweans together to build a $50 billion economy by 2023 and a $100 billion economy by 2028. As you also know, we have made a commitment in our manifesto that as part of our drive to reduce non-productive public spending, we would eliminate the office of second vice president in the event that we are elected. Constitutionally, I will be expected to go into this election with 2 vice presidents, and the changes to eliminate the second vice president can only be done by constitutional amendment after one is elected. We will therefore be announcing the selection of a second running mate in the near future to serve one term in the event that we are elected. Let me end with this promise to the Zimbabwean people before I ask William to say a few remarks. In the event that we are given the mandate to lead our country, we will ensure that the word great shall not belong just to Harare, but to Lupane and the village in Uzumba, Maramba, Pungwe and Binga. It shall not just belong to Borodale Brook, but to Mbare, to Mbizo, to Mziligas. It shall not just belong to Peter House, but to Mambo High School and Mashoko Primary. Not just to the private hospitals, but to Mpino, Gomo, and Cholocho Provincial Hospital. Zimbabwe shall not just be great for the foreign investor who can work our system, or for the relatives of those in high places, but for the vendor and the small-scale and artisanal miner for whom we will build clear pathways out of poverty into the middle class. Those I'm selecting to be part of my team, including William, are not only committed to that, but their performance will be judged by it. Is there not a cause? Zimbabwe, ilizwe letu, ilifa letu. Zimbabwe, nyika yetu, naka yetu. Zimbabwe, our country, our heritage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Manyika. Fellow Zimbabweans, this is truly a momentous day. The idea that such a thing as this could happen was, until today, almost delusional. Today you bear witness with us as history is made in our great nation. The symbolism of this moment is so profound that I'm not sure any of us will fully appreciate its depth for some time. It represents the death throes of racism in our nation. It symbolizes the unity we have never had, and without which we cannot rebuild. And it is the very essence of hope for our future. Because if we can end the divisions, the strife, and the discord, if we can pull together as one nation, what limit is there to what we can achieve? This is indeed the beginning of a brand new chapter in Zimbabwe's history. A chapter courageously opened by the Build Zimbabwe Alliance, in which I am honored to play a part. Why do I say this move is courageous? Because it is so easy to follow convention. But it is a difficult thing to break the mold and forge a new reality. As all right-thinking people know, changing the current narrative is the only path to genuine change. I look forward to the future with eager anticipation of what God has in store for us, but also with some trepidation for the trials we will face. We know that there will be a tough fight ahead. But know this, we are committed and we are resolute. For my part, I have no other purpose, no other goal in life than to pursue what is before us in the service of my God and my country. I thank my family and friends for their incredible support, without whose encouragement this task would likely be impossible. To the team of amazing men and women in the BZA, who so graciously, and I have said courageously, invited me onto the team, thank you for your trust and your confidence. I believe history will look back on this moment and salute you. To those powers who oppose us and block our path, know this: we may appear small in your eyes, but this is no accident. This is divine by design. This is by divine design. It was not Goliath that slew the proud Philistine giant, but young David. A humble shepherd prepared and anointed by God for a particular moment in time. A time such as this. Fellow Zimbabweans, if ever there was a time for hope, it is now. God is at work in this nation. You know it, and we can all feel it. God bless you, and thank you for celebrating this historic moment with us today.
Thank you very much, Doc, and thank you, William. A warm welcome to you from the Build Zimbabwe Alliance family, and congratulations on this appointment. We are now opening up the floor for questions. If you have any questions, like I asked earlier, could you kindly raise your hand? Let us know who you are, if you can introduce yourself and your affiliation. Please feel free. I know everyone was really moved by the two speeches. I certainly was, and I could see a few tears out there, but do feel free to ask any questions.
Oh, this is wonderful. This is the first time that I've seen journalists being stopped, you know. Now, I think there's a question over. Yes.
Why do you propose to do away with the second vice president?
I think if you look at what we said in our manifesto, it's part of a whole approach to really limit government spending. And also, in the spirit of what we've just done, I actually think that every Zimbabwean should feel like they can be president of this country, even if they come from a minority tribe. And that it shouldn't be by set aside, but by merit. And I think we will make that statement in our country when we can actually have just one vice president who is a woman, who is Ndebele, who is white, who is colored, who is whatever tribe they are. We will actually make that point much, much more effectively when we have one vice president. So there's two reasons for it. So it's that, and the whole idea of actually cutting government spending, which is really, really critical. I think some of you have watched the video that I just put out on the implications of the size of our government on the well-being of our people. It's not a joke. It's a very, very serious thing. When 90% of your budget resources goes towards paying salaries and maintaining this wide patronage system, when people are dying in hospitals. My wife and I went to visit somebody who was in the intensive care unit recently, and their relatives had to run around looking for catheters and looking for blood and things like that. It's something which the hospital itself is supposed to do. And can you imagine you yourself being the custodian of the blood that is going to be given to your relative? You don't know how to take care of it. You're not a professional. And when things like that happen, and as I have also said, when the Minister of Health has to actually appeal to the public for $250,000 to deal with a cholera epidemic, when the very same government is buying cars for 260-something chiefs and making sure that the ministers and the new deputy ministers who have just been appointed all have vehicles and all of that. That tells you something about the misplaced priorities of the government up to this point. So we are very, very committed to making sure that we can cut down public spending and make sure that those resources are directed to where they should go.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Manyika. Any further questions? Please go ahead.
Is the decision decided for cutting because one is tempted to think that maybe the decision to cut and to remove another vice president is maybe to contain intra-party fighting as we have witnessed in some other parties. Is there any link between what is happening and the decision to remove another vice president so that you have a clear succession plan?
Okay, that's a very good question. You know, that has been factored into our thinking, actually. But as you know, you're right. There have been so many intra-party fights because of this reality that we have two vice presidents. But that has not really factored into our thinking. The thinking of our team has always been that, you know, you need to make sure that you have you contain public spending, and also that you make this statement in a very, very bold way that, you know what, if it's in the Ndebele that I'm picking to be vice president, they are picked on merit. And they have the ability to actually become the president of the country because they're a citizen. You know, there's something that, and William alluded to this. You know, if we can do this, if we can actually treat every Zimbabwean as a full citizen who can participate in rebuilding the country and directing its, determining its direction at whatever level, there's nothing that can stop us. You know, I was watching the other day the documentary about the subway system in Paris. And the subway system in Paris was built, I think, in 1900. They actually had enough unity to envision things like that in their country. We are so preoccupied in our country with things that really don't matter, things that really don't have an impact on the livelihoods of people on the ground. And I think that, well, if the added benefit of having one vice president is that we will stop all these unnecessary squabbles, then wonderful. But that did not factor into our thinking. We were just really thinking in terms of containing public spending, but more importantly, making this statement that if somebody is actually made vice president, they're fully qualified to even be the president of the country, not by a set aside, but because they are a citizen.
Thank you. And if you have some questions you'd like to address to William, please feel free as well.
The same guys.
There are things that opposition is too divided to such an extent that it will give President Emerson Mnangagwa power on a single platter. Mm-hmm. What is your comment on that?
Well, you know what? This is democracy is messy, and that's something that we have to accept. We have to understand that if we are fighting for democracy, it's going to be messy. And there are going to be many, many alternatives that are going to be presented to the people to choose from. Now, I really believe in the intelligence and the integrity of the people of Zimbabwe, because some of these things that are said by experts and pundits. I really believe that the Zimbabwean people know what they're going through, and that if you present to the Zimbabwean people, as we have done with our manifesto, exactly what you're going to do, and you keep pushing for everybody to know who you are, they will make the right decisions. This idea of calling the election before it is even done, I think is so unfair to the Zimbabwean people. We're not there yet. Now, let me add to that we are absolutely determined as well to make sure that we can bring people together. We can actually set out there what our values are, and you know, hopefully people coalesce around that. And as we come closer to the election, I'm sure there's going to be much, much more consolidation of the opposition than there is right now. But let me emphasize, I really, really believe that the Zimbabwean people can make a judgment when people and political parties present to them what it is that they are going to do, and they will make the right decision for themselves.
Yeah. You made reference to the missing 15 billion and some links with some characters who are now in government.
Need to make sure that things like that are accounted for. And the first accounting, first is the rejection by the electorate of the lies that the people who are currently in government were not involved. We know they were involved. You know, it's obvious they were involved. And even as I said before, when you look at who was in control of what then, who was the Minister of Defense, who was the Minister of Home Affairs, who was the Minister of Mines, these are characters who are still in government today, occupying high-level positions in our country. Now, remember, at one time I drove to Manicaland from Mashingo. I was going to Mtare. And this was during the time when the mines were still functioning fully. You couldn't get into that area without passing through several military roadblocks. You just couldn't just drive in there. You know, even just getting into the province you couldn't do it without passing through several military roadblocks. They know what went out. They know. I mean, you know, if they didn't, then they should have. And the question that would then have to be asked is, why didn't you know? How come you didn't know? And for me, that says clearly what kind of leadership there was, and some of those people who were in control are still there today. Look, let's not pretend as if Chiadzwa was an open place where you know, the marketplace was determining which mine, who should actually mine, and so on. No, no, no. This is something that was decided by government. And Robert Mugabe himself should never be allowed to get off with claiming that, you know, he doesn't know where $15 billion went. Otherwise, that's a serious dereliction of duty. He knows where the $15 billion went because the people who were allocated concessions to mine in that area were all determined by government. And the army was there, and the police was there, to make sure, in fact, that was the reason why they were there, to make sure that things did not happen that they were not aware of. So as far as that one is concerned, it's absolutely critical. Look, if the current president is serious about you know, a new start, then all these things should be put out in the open. Yesterday I was watching Themba Mliswa grilling Chivayo, Themba Mliswa and his committee, grilling Chivayo, and that was great. That should happen. It shouldn't just be Chivayo. There are a lot of top-level people who were giving people like Wicknell deals. And it's not just Wicknell, it's a whole lot of them. I also made reference, as I was speaking earlier on, some of the people who are really encouraging us to move forward and are saying, look, give these people a chance, are also businessmen in this country who have benefited quite a lot from the dysfunction, who never had any trouble because they had they were highly connected to people in high places now. And they're very, very anxious that, you know, we shouldn't make any noise so that they can proceed with doing business under these circumstances. And we must not accept that as a people. So as BZA, I don't think that it would be fair to the Zimbabwean people if we let things like that slide.
Thank you, Dr. Manyika. Any further questions? Sure.
My question is directed to William. I wanted to find out from you, are you going to politics full-time or you're going in part-time?
Thank you for the question. I'm in politics full-time. When, some time ago, I was thinking about how I would spend the rest of my life, something came to mind over and over again, and that is, if we do not step forward, who will? If we do not take a stand for what's happening in Zimbabwe, who will? There are so many things that need to be put right. For so long we have had disunity and discord in this country. And it is time to change. So yes, today is not a flash in the pan. This is something, as I said in my speech, I have no other purpose, no other goal in life but to dedicate my time to helping rebuild Zimbabwe. And I thank BZA for giving me a platform, an opportunity to participate in realizing that goal. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think there are no further questions. Again, I would really want to thank you for making the time to join us today for this press conference. Many thanks to you, Dr. Manyika, our president. We really appreciate the leadership that you've been giving the party, the executive committee, and again, a warm welcome to William. It really has been a pleasure working with you to date, and we know we are up for a big challenge. It takes a lot of courage, but together we'll do it. Thank you.
If you have an Android phone, we are going to be sending you a link so that you can actually download the Build Zimbabwe Alliance app. And there are some things, you know, one of the things I'm really proud about about this team is that there are some things that we do to surprise each other. There are people will be working in the middle of the night and so on, and I don't even know that they're working. So I've also started doing that, kind of moonlighting a little bit, so that we can do certain things and surprise each other. But yes, I want to thank God for some of the hardworking members of our executive who actually also did this kind of like on the side to make sure that we would have this. So by the end of the day today, if you have an Android phone, by the end of the week, it will also be working on an iPhone. We will have a BZA app, which you can receive all our information and so on through that app. So thank you, and thank you, Ranga, thank you, Linda, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Tari, and all our executive members for making it possible also for me to create some creative space to do some of these things, and we were very, very excited about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.